Hi, I'm Joseph Anderson, the president of IPX. Thank you for joining the European CM2 Summit. Our theme for this summit is Sustainable Business Calibration and Digital Transformation. Over the next 15 minutes, I'm going to try to define what those terms, what those phrases actually mean. And we're going to try to dig in to find out if they're more than just fancy buzzwords.
We're not just another OEM, and we're not trying to create products for the sake of creating products. We're really thinking about every single piece of the pie rather than just focusing on pushing a ton of vehicles out there. We have a massive focus on culture, and I suppose that culture is built on people who are obviously really clever from lots of different backgrounds, lots of different experiences in terms of work and life. You see some amazing things, and more often than not, I am like the dumbest guy in the room, and it's just awesome to be that person, to see all this sort of stuff happening and helping these guys and girls, create awesome stuff. When I had the opportunity to come and look at what Arrival was doing, it really gave me that gut feel that, we're really trying to question everything about the automotive industry, question the right parts of the industry, and really try and make all these like crazy visions of mobility you see in films and movies and stuff, and actually make that a reality rather than just sci-fi fiction.
So the natural question often posed to IPX is how do we stay on the leading edge of all of these enabling and empowering initiatives, technology, modern business models, organizational change management, workforce development. How is IPX leading the curve? And the reality is we've hired the best of the best, and we work with the best of the best, and we've established these relationships with our clients where we become part of their ecosystem. I mean, we become a competitive advantage, and we work with companies that have been around for 20, 30 years, and we're helping them change from within. And we also work with startups. We're working with some of the most fascinating startups across the globe. When you look at companies like Arrival that we work with, they're just shaking up the industry from design to manufacturing, supply chain control and management, and consumer configurability on the product. And we're proud of that. And when an organization starts discussing transformation, typically they use the digital transformation phase or buzzwords, and we're all familiar with those. They have a proper place, but they've kind of gotten watered down, and that's why this summit's so important, because IPX is truly about calibration across your ecosystem. And that's why our RISE platform, our OCM model, identifies the proper steps to ensure you could identify and assess and define your as-is ecosystem DNA. You have true leadership commitment that stays engaged throughout the program. You have a proper enterprise action plan that's staged and iterative. You have a global business engagement strategy for all of your sites. You have stakeholders at your sites that have input into the program. You empower accountability. You foster continual collaboration, and you promote feedback. And all of these things, broken down, are quite intensive, but they ensure you deliver excellence. And that's why, for us, you must take the time to define, to deliver, and to empower, and to go through this methodology within the RISE platform, because it truly involves institutionalizing change. And the reality is business leaders and their workforce face an uncharted landscape that is evolving at a rapid pace. The ever-changing global terrain requires dynamic leadership and workforce skills, including navigating geographical and regulatory complexity. We're talking about being more tech-savvy, managing changing consumer and supply chain demographics, and supporting an inclusive workforce. And a business striving for excellence must ensure that it's built upon a strong and continually developed modern workforce. And most organizations this year have been caught off guard, if they're being honest with themselves, right? A lot of catch-up going on right now, and it's unfortunate. And the coronavirus and the lockdowns and the quarantines and the travel restrictions, it's hard to prepare for those things. But it should have taught us a lesson for those of us that are going to make it through this, right? That We have to become truly more efficient, more effective, but we must be sustainable and scalable. And we must have the processes that allow us to navigate and be more nimble. And we have to invest in change, right? We have to roll our sleeves up and do the work that most don't like to do. And change isn't easy. And we have to accept this. At the end of the day, if you want true sustainable business calibration and true digital transformation, that's not just some buzzword. It requires an investment in those stakeholders, right? You have to bring in your supply chain. You have to understand their requirements. You have to understand the requirements of your consumers, of that end customer, before you start building the systems of tomorrow, right? Or identifying the platforms of tomorrow. You're not going to pour those out of a Wheaties box and put some milk on it, and tomorrow everything's going to be better. Right? We've got to change our processes. We've got to ensure our data is correct. We have to have all the correct touch points. And then at the end of the day, we truly need to invest in our workforce, and that can't be some token statement. Workforce development is paramount to success. Having the right skills, the right training, that drives efficiency, that drives scalability, and that's where most companies fall short. And this is where the CM2 digital DNA comes into play. Unlike the human being, who really is limited on what you could do with your DNA is, what can be repaired, what can be fixed. Technology isn't quite there where we could go in and just start tinkering with our DNA and improving these genetic defects that many of us are born with as children. It's unfortunate, but from a business perspective, you have the rare capability to actually change your DNA. And Todd Egan, our vice president of field operations, developed this model a few years ago. And it really kind of shook up the industry because it allows you as a business, as an organization, regardless of your size, to go in and assess your DNA. Map out your DNA. Identify the strengths, identify the gaps, identify that as is DNA of your ecosystem, map out where you're trying to go, what's going to have to be improved, what's going to have to be completely decommissioned and replaced in order to get you to that future model-based environment. That's where all industry is going. That traditional file-based is slowly becoming archaic. But this is really powerful, right? This is the backbone of all of those digital buzzwords, right? We've discussed those already. You've heard presentation after presentation at events over the last 5 years talking about the digital thread and digital twin. Well, let me tell you something. You cannot accomplish any of that without CM2. Understanding those baselines, right? Understanding those linkages, those touch points, those data models, the requirements upon requirements upon requirements, the options, the variances, the as needed, all the way to as decommissioned, right? Those market needs, all the way to those archival records. That's true traceability. And that's why the CM2 digital DNA is so important, and it's why it's paramount to success. It's the driving requirement for your enterprise digital platform. And as product complexity increases and organizations become more reliant on their supply chains, managing the change process and communication across their global digital ecosystems, it's an increasing challenge. And ineffective and efficient organization structures, processes, and systems leave organizations struggling to improve quality. It's as simple as that. And they struggle to reduce time to market and manage cost. And they spend more money on intervention resources. And it just kind of compounds. And they live in this kind of world of corrective action and just throwing money in a trash can and lighting it on fire. And, with CM2, with that understanding that it is the global standard for enterprise product lifecycle management, that's kind of the holy grail, right? It's getting all of that data, all that true product data from those original kind of napkin ideas until you get that first kind of proof of concept design, and then you get that first start of production. CM2 allows you at that enterprise level to have a comprehensive methodology for managing all of that configuration data. And that's a powerful statement. CM2 extends well beyond design information, and that's important. This means you include all of the requirements for the enterprise for that change. So when we're reviewing the impact of the change, we have to understand the regulatory requirements, the environmental, maybe the regional, right? Especially once we get into buses or transportation, we have to understand the different requirements from height, right? From a bridge perspective. And all of these things must be considered when we're talking about the true impact of a change. And CM2 brings together this cross-functional competency. This is where most organizations struggle. They're used to having that engineering-centric mindset, but the cutting-edge companies, ones that are really getting it, they understand that innovation is driven by collaboration, and that's important. To understand innovation is driven by collaboration. And CM2 provides this kind of scalable foundation for continual improvement. And I've preached upon this for years, the difference between continuous and continual. Continuous means you never stop, you never measure, you never monitor, you just keep doing. And that's not always good. Continual means you understand the journey ahead, and you monitor your success and your progress along the way, and you make quick iterative actions to continue forward. So with CM2, with that enterprise mindset, you truly get this empowered quality management model, not a system, not an IT tool, but your QMS, that quality management system. If it's not based off of CM2, you're going to get it wrong. Quite frankly, you're going to kind of live in the days of yesterday, right? Of 30, 40 years ago with that engineering-centric change in configuration management. With CM2, you have that guarantee of quality. You have the guarantee of speed, that robust governance and accountability. You have that guarantee of scalability across that enterprise framework. And it's important for you to realize if you continue to do things in that legacy world with those legacy processes, those archaic business models, these things are unsustainable, and that damage will compound ultimately to a point where your whole enterprise, your whole ecosystem will collapse. It does not matter how good you were 20 years ago. If you do not evolve, you must become sustainable. And to become sustainable, you need a modern business model that is built upon your enterprise. And that can be integrated across your supply chain. And with CM2, you have such a model.
My grandfather started Sub-Zero back in 1944. Quality was the hallmark of the business, and it continues to be the hallmark of our two brands today. One of the things that my grandfather always used to do was go out on the shop floor, jump up on the sheet metal table, get the employees around it, and he would give them an hour speech about quality. And when my dad designed the first built-in refrigerator in 1954, it was always about quality, and that was something that I always remembered, and what it meant to build a quality product.
Our client partners, such as Sub-Zero Wolf, truly understand the importance of quality. It's ingrained. From day one, it's been part of their culture. That's why they've invested in their workforce. It's why their workforce is becoming CM2 trained. It's why they are using the CM2 standard as their quality management model. It's why they're basing the requirements for their systems on CM2. These things are all important. That doesn't mean quality slows down or stifles innovation. It just ensures quality is built and thought about when you're designing the products of the future. If COVID has taught us anything, it's that we as organizations need to get better at being able to communicate efficiently and effectively. IT tools just empower good processes and good communication behaviors. But IT tools will also empower poor processes and poor communication behaviors. And that's something we need to remember. So we're going to talk a lot throughout the next 2 days about how we can enable better communication across all of our competencies and why it's paramount to the success of our organization. And with that, I'd like to close. Thank you for your time. Guido, thank you for the invitation to speak and participate. It's always an honor. And I look forward to participating as an attendee over the next 2 days. And hopefully we all network. Hopefully we all take the time to participate and listen. And let's have a great 2 days. Thank you. I'm Joseph Anderson, the president of IPX.